Welcome to a state tournament preview edition of Talking Hoops. I've got Michael McCleary of the Argus Leader, and I'm Jason Andera from Midco Sports. And this is the time of the year when you play for it all. You got to put 3 games together in 3 days, something that these teams are not used to doing, but the teams will really have to earn a spot to win it all. These are some competitive tournaments, Michael.
Yeah, and we saw that earlier in the season with some of these conference tournaments too. I mean, these tournament type structures can show different sides of teams. So I'm really excited to see, who holds up in these tournaments.
Of course, the last night, the SODAC 16 games in Class A and Class B on the boys' side all happened. So those tournaments are set. But this particular episode is about girls basketball in South Dakota. We will get to the boys next week. So congrats to all those teams who punched their ticket there. But let's start in girls AA. The tournament is in Rapid City. It's at the Ice Arena. They had some complications with scheduling when they first tried to secure the new arena there. But the Ice Arena is a nice place to play. It's just not the premier spot in the city to play, but it still should host a very fun tournament. And interesting, I want to hear your reaction to this. No ESD teams at the state tournament, all Sioux Falls Metro and Rapid City teams in this tournament. Does that cause any alarm for you or any response from that, Michael?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the one thing that I look at is obviously Jefferson punching their ticket, being a first-year program to do that. Now you got 5 Sioux Falls schools that are in the mix there. So, it doesn't when you have 5 of 8, that doesn't really leave much room for all those other teams, especially when, the Rapid City schools are so strong. So, obviously Harrisburg got that upset in the SODAC 16 that punched their ticket, but yeah, that's just sort of how it went this year.
Yeah, it's kind of new, but it still should make for a very competitive tournament. Let's go break these games down one at a time. The number 1 game starts at noon Mountain Time. Washington takes on Jefferson. You mentioned this. This was interesting. They played twice this year. The first time they played, Washington pretty handily won that game. In the second game, much closer. And Michael, you had a chance to talk to Jamie Parrish. I'll let you talk about the game and then set up a comment from him.
Yeah, and Jamie was saying, that this is a really talented team, and even if they have flown under the radar at parts of the year, the coaching staff is not coming in, thinking that this is going to be an easy 1-8 sweep. But yeah, I mean, obviously Washington is, has played some great basketball towards the end of the year. 38 points from Jackalinga Winnetanda in the SODAC 16 win to advance to the state tournament for them. And, they were always going to be one of the top teams coming into this tournament. And, that's a tough matchup for Jefferson, especially in their first year. But, credit to the Cavaliers, making it here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we've said this before that Jackalinga doesn't have to score to impact the game, but when she scores 38, she definitely impacts the game. And I just want to mention throughout the show today, I'm going to put some graphics up of the leaders in the state tournament, and Jackalinga, solid in scoring, rebounding, and assists, defense. I mean, she's definitely one of the reasons to tune into this tournament.
Yeah, Gatorade Player of the Year in South Dakota was announced this morning. Obviously fantastic player that they have, but Washington is stacked from top to bottom, so they're going to be the team to beat right now.
So you talked to Jamie. What did he have to say about the matchup?
Yeah, like I said, he was, he's obviously not looking past it, but he's feeling really good about how his team's playing right now, and we broke that down a little bit.
Teams like that are really dangerous. They come in with nothing to lose. A group of kids that didn't have green uniforms a year ago, hadn't been to a state tournament. That they've already made history by making it to the tournament. They've made history by winning their first game. So we got to show up ready to play. That's a group of kids that, I know they're talented, and people in the coaching world know that they're talented, but a lot of people kind of look and say, oh, they're not even supposed to be here. And when you play against teams like that, it's a little bit dangerous. So we have to make sure that we're on point.
Let's move on to that 4-5 matchup, an all Rapid City battle. This one will be 1:45 local time. I guess that guarantees that we'll have a Rapid City team playing on Friday.
Yeah, and I was able to talk to Rapid City Stevens head coach Adam Dannenbrink this morning too, and we obviously there's been a lot made of that matchup, and he just said that's sort of how the seed points fell, but he's excited for the rest of the state to kind of see this rivalry up close, especially on a big stage like the AA state tournament. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be excited about this, even though it's difficult to knock off someone in your own city in the first round.
All right, let's hear from Adam.
We'd be excited to play anyone first round of the state tournament. I mean, it just happens to be Central, and there, you're going to play a good team when you get to the state tournament. I mean, that's just the way it is, and it just happens that the PowerPoints ended up being where they were at, and so we got to match up with them. Now, for the fans, I think like it's pretty fun. Like it'll be interesting for people from around the state to maybe get to see what our rivalry is like. Like I've been around the state, and like I know that a lot of towns, like have their rivalries, and there's good matchups everywhere. But like the Stevens Central one is a pretty special one. Like the crowds are usually very large, they're vocal, they're rowdy. Kids sometimes chant not nice things to each other. So I mean, there's a lot of I don't know. I really enjoy it. Like it's been a really enjoyable experience. Like it's stressful as a coach, but you're gonna have a little bit of that whenever you have your big rivalry game.
So these two teams split in the regular season. Central actually got a nice win. That was one of their most quality wins of the year back in December when they won by 4, and then the second time around, Stevens won, but Stevens has been up and down a little bit. I really feel like they're playing well right now, though, and I think that experience of them getting all the way to the championship game last year, I think, will resurface here in this one as well. What do you think?
Yeah, it helps when you have one of the best players in the state, and Jada McNabb. They're really good at the point guard position, obviously, but all across the lineup, they got some really nice forwards. They got they have a really good team. And, that was one of the things that Adam and I talked about, especially coming off that loss earlier in the year to Central, like reassessing and, sort of figuring out how to play your best basketball towards the end of the year. That's what every team's goal is. And I feel like they're pretty close to it.
So that's the second game of the AA's. Let's go to the third game. O'Gorman takes on Lincoln. Of course, they've played each other twice. O'Gorman won both of those games fairly handily. Lincoln, as we talked to Matt Daly last week, they are just happy to be here. Really, they're feeling really successful already just to get to this point. Whereas O'Gorman, they've got title hopes, and they don't want to slip up here. This is an important game for them, but they've got bigger goals.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about the state tournament. A lot of these teams already have succeeded in their seasons. Winning that SODAC 16 matchup, getting to go to the state tournament, that's a win. And, I would argue that's a win for all 8 teams. But, there are some teams in this bracket who understand that there are high expectations for them, and, just with their records and how they've gone through their schedules, that, they should how they should perform in this tournament. And O'Gorman's definitely one of them. They're a really good team. They're a team that has been the number 1 or the number 2 all season long. And, I expect them to, get a nice win in that first round game.
O'Gorman made it to the semis last year where they got beat. They are hoping that they can punch their ticket to a Saturday night matchup. And everybody's kind of right now talking about Washington O'Gorman. We'll talk about the entire bracket here in a second. Let's get to that last game where Brandon Valley takes on Harrisburg. Harrisburg, the only team to upset their way into the state tournament. And in AA, they don't reseed. The round of 16 just continues straight through. So the 11 seed Harrisburg Tigers take on Brandon Valley. These are teams familiar with each other. Brandon won the regular season matchup 50-37 back in late January. But this Harrisburg team, they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a big win in the SODAC 16. And, obviously Brandon Valley, they get coming with the number 3 seed, but, they lost to the 4 and 5 seeds during the year. So, they've had some moments of up and down play, but, at their height, they're a really, really good team. So, I actually think this is going to be a really good matchup as far as the seedings are. But, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to predict with this game. This is probably the most difficult first round matchup for me. But obviously Brandon Valley has their moments where they're playing great, and Harrisburg's ending the season good. So it'll be exciting to see them go up against each other.
Yeah, the key in this game, Emily Boyer for Harrisburg has been their go-to girl. Not only offensively, but defensively has been tough. And that will be interesting to see how she matches up if she takes Hillary Barons. And then does Kylie Foss or Sydney Thuy step up for Brandon Valley when they get the supporting cast there with Hillary? They seem to be definitely a team to watch. They've played like a top 3 team in the state at times. So will they play more like that top 3 team, or that team that can be vulnerable and maybe, not play up to their abilities? We've seen them both from Brandon this year, but I think they're heading in the right direction as well. All right, let's move on to, let's just talk about the Class AA tournament overall. We talked about the matchups, but I think most of the state, and I see it this way, sees it as Washington and O'Gorman in their own little tier. And then you got Brandon Valley and the 2 Rapid City schools maybe in that next tier, and then the other teams. And I would be surprised not to see O'Gorman and Washington. Not to say it can't happen, but I would be surprised to see if we don't have a Washington-O'Gorman matchup on Saturday night. What do you think?
Yeah, and I just want to leave on the table, of course, anything can happen.
Of course.
It's state tournament time. We're not downplaying any team's ability to, make a run or anything like that. But, Washington and O'Gorman have been the 1 and 2 all year long. And, of course, if everybody is playing at their best towards the end of the year, you would think that those would be the 2 teams to come out of the pack. So, yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, you watch some of these other teams match up against each other, and you're like, wow, this team's making a good impression. This team's making a good impression. But then, Jack Olenga goes out and scores 38 points, and it's like, how can you pick against the number 1 team now? And and then Hannah Ronsick has a really big scoring game. And you wonder how O'Gorman's going to falter. And, there's just been no reason to doubt these teams throughout the year. So, yeah, I definitely am on board with that.
Yeah, some great individual talent in this AA tournament. We're going to see several future Division I players. We're going to see some good matchups, great coaching in this class, and excited to see how this all plays out. Let's move to Girls A. This one should be a lot of fun, too. Speaking of individual talent, here's a look at some of the leaders that I put together, some of the graphics from some of the top scorers in the league. And this shows you every team kind of has a player, a go-to player. The one team that maybe doesn't have one of these players in the top 8 of scoring is Wagner, and they're the top seed in this tournament. First of all, the 1 through 8 in this tournament, so balanced. I think one team has 5 losses. Most teams have 20 wins. I think there's 6 or more teams with 20 wins in this thing. Incredible balance in this tournament.
Yeah, I believe it's 7 because I believe
it can be 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Dakota Valley is the only team that has less than 20, and they have 19. So not that far.
St. Thomas More is 19 and 3 as well.
Okay. Yeah. So it is.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but we've talked about this all year long. We were talking about this during the SODAC 16. We were talking about this months before the SODAC 16 even happened. Class A is stacked. There's so many good teams in this class, and
no upsets in the round of 16. So we have the 8 top teams.
Yeah, which is kind of surprising just based on how everything's played out this year. But some of the teams that spent time in the top 5 in the prep media poll throughout the year, they're not even in this tournament. They didn't even make the top 8. So that just shows you just how strong this class is, and how these seed points matchups give us some teams that maybe were flying under the radar throughout the year, but they get convincing wins in the SODAC 16, and they're going into the tournament on a high note. So I actually think we talked about with girls AA how some teams reaching the tournament, that's a success. I think 1 through 8 can win this tournament. So I don't really know, of course, it's a big milestone to make it here, but, I don't think any of these teams is coming into this tournament and saying, if we just play one game, we'll be fine with it. Because I think every team, sees their path to the final.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And another person who couldn't agree more is head coach for Wagner, Michael Kopel. I talked to him about just the competitive of this tournament and then his chances to put a run together. And here's what he had to say.
Just by looking at the teams that made it, 18 losses between all 8 teams, I go, that's unreal. And, especially in Class A, I mean, nothing against Class B, but there's a lot more schools. And, you'll have those Class B tournaments where you get a couple undefeated teams getting in there. And then you got a lot of them with 1 or 2. So, I mean, that class, you'll have not as many losses. But, man, when you get into Class A and you can get that, you got something special just as a class. So, I mean, kudos to all the 8 teams that, have made it in Class A. And yeah, it's going to be a dogfight. I tell you that. And it's just one of those things, you can live in the moment, but then you also reflect back and like, hey, we got something special here, and things just do fall in place. And, to be good, sometimes you need luck on your side, and working hard though, that creates your own luck. And so, that's kind of where I think we're sitting right now.
So yeah, Wagner comes in as the 1 seed, but they played just a 2-loss team in Red Cloud. Not your typical 1 versus 8 here, Michael.
No, not at all. And Red Cloud is really, really good. Obviously, they get some decent scoring at the top from Stevie Fallis and Allison Richards. They're 2 guards, 16.2 points per game and 14.2 points per game. Really, really nice scoring at the front of their offense. But the big thing, I was talking to Mike Kopel as well, and he mentioned Jordan Derby, Red Cloud's 6'2" center, and obviously that's it's always tough when you have somebody that big in the middle, especially when you have the guards on the perimeter who could score. Jordan's not someone who scores a ton, but she obviously impacts the game a ton as a defender and a ton as a rebounder. So, that's going to be a tough matchup for any team. And going against the number 1 team in the class, we discussed obviously how, an 8-1 upset would not be surprising. And, this is a really, really tough matchup for Wagner coming in as the number 1 seed.
Yeah, like you said, Derby, 1.8 blocks per game, and she affects a lot more than that. So she's not, killing it offensively, but man, she's going to make a difference in the lane. And they love to get up and down the court. So does Wagner. Wagner's got several different scorers. Like I said, wouldn't be shocked to see this game go either way, which is rare to say for a 1-8. I do think Wagner definitely is the favorite, but wouldn't be shocked to see it go either way. Let's go to 4-5, where Lakota Tech plays St. Thomas More, and Lakota Tech has gotten through the season with just 1 loss. They've got a common opponent in Red Cloud, where Lakota Tech split with Red Cloud during the year. St. Thomas More won a very close game against Red Cloud late in the year. All signs point to another fantastic matchup here in the 4-5.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really liked watching Lakota Tech play when, I saw them at the Hanson Classic. They're extremely versatile, and, they're gonna look to run from the moment the game starts. But, St. Thomas More, they have maybe one of the best players in the state in Reese Ross. And, she impacts the game in so many ways. She says that her, the thing that she prides her game off of is defense, but, watching her play offense, that's a very surprising thing to hear. I mean, she could shoot the lights out. She can dribble. She could pass. I mean, she's just an unbelievable player. So, we talked about a lot of these teams having difference makers. She is a difference maker. She's the definition of difference maker. So, I think this is going to be a really, really closely contested matchup, and, look for Reese Ross to be scoring a lot of points in this game.
Yeah, it's not surprising to hear her say that, hearing that her coach is Brandon Candlin, who's basically made a living off of coaching defense. And I'll tell you what, that's the one thing that's going to keep St. Thomas More in any game is the way they play on that side of the ball. But they have to contain Lakota Tech, a team that has 4 double-digit scorers, and then let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7 players that are 7 points a game or more. I mean, they rotate and they will do line changes and they will run up and down the court. As soon as they get tired, they will exchange and they will have a new group of players doing the exact same thing. They are a lot of fun to watch, and it's tough to tire them out. We'll just have to see if they're hitting their shots, if they can compete with a team like St. Thomas More.
Yeah, and in a tournament like this, that is everything, especially when you could keep people fresh throughout the game and throughout these consecutive days of games. So, that's going to be huge for Dakota Tech. And I think they're a sleeper in this tournament. I think they're a team that, is really, really close to, if they play their best basketball in just their second year of their program, first state tournament, I think there's a chance that they could win this all.
I mean, I could say that for everybody, but you definitely could see a path that they get this thing done. But St. Thomas More, a stout test in their way on that first day. Let's move to that 2-7 matchup. The evening session starts with West Central playing Dakota Valley. They've played each other. They know each other well, being in the same conference. West Central comes in as the 2. Dakota Valley comes in as the 7. Dakota Valley has the worst record in this thing, and you could make a case that they have the best player in this tournament in Riley Rosenquist, who leads all scorers in this tournament, leads all rebounders in this tournament, and leads everyone in assists in this tournament. She has been phenomenal. And I talked to Joe Caffrey, the head coach of West Central, and he knows that this is going to take a special defensive effort to slow Riley Rosenquist down.
We're similar matchups. They have Riley Rosenquist is a heck of a player, so keeping track of her will be priority on defense, and then just letting our offense work, sharing the ball, getting the ball moving, push it in transition. Some of those things that have gotten us our wins this year, we just need to continue to do, and hopefully we do so at a high level.
So yeah, West Central, they took that loss to Wagner earlier this year, but that was on the tail end of an unbelievable test for them, game after game against elite teams. So I give them a little bit of a pass. I feel like West Central is the favorite in this thing. In a field that you could say that about anybody, I really think West Central has what it takes to get this thing done.
Yeah, and no disrespect to Wagner at all, which is an absolutely great team. But West Central, they're maybe the most exciting team that I've watched this year. Obviously, Riley Haldeman leads them in scoring, but that doesn't describe the half of their team. They're a team. They play team basketball. They run in transition. They're absolutely dominant on defense. They shoot the 3 better than maybe any team in Class A. And yeah, I mean, they're gonna cause some real problems. But you mentioned Dakota Valley and Riley Rosenquist. She could score in an instant too. I mean, that's a team that where West Central maybe gets their points in bunches from a bunch of different contributors. I mean, Riley Rosenquist can do it all on her own. So that's going to be really interesting to see who controls the pace in that game. And West Central really hasn't had much issues controlling the pace in many of the games they played in, but this is going to be tough for them.
Yeah, West Central is a very guard-heavy team, but they've got Tabor Teal in the middle, who has done a great job of giving them some flexibility, playing defense against the bigs as well as the outside players. And then they've got Addie Kramer, who has 7 rebounds a game as a guard. And that just shows you how nasty these guards are, and they get after it. They don't mind getting their hands dirty a little bit. And this West Central team has got a lot of players like that who can get it done. I really like this Trojan team, but Dakota Valley, a tough first round matchup for them. Let's move on to a 3-6 game. Hamlin takes on Sioux Falls Christian. Hamlin, they're one of those teams that haven't spent much time in the rankings this year, but have just continued to go about their business and get things done. They were the runner-up in Class A last year. They bring back, they lost a couple of key players, but bring back some really key players in Kylie Wadsworth and Allie Abraham. And then they add a new 8th grade point guard who's done some pretty amazing things for them this year in Allie Neuendorf. And they take on a Sioux Falls Christian team, another team that hasn't been in the rankings, but basically only lost to elite teams this year, and feel like they could be a team that could really cause some havoc in this tournament.
Yeah, and it starts with Kyla Van Dunkersgood. for Sioux Falls Christian. She's the person in the middle who's going to be doing a lot of the scoring, and the offense is sort of going to run through her, and Ellie Lems on the outside too, just to sort of initiate that inside out play. But yeah, Sioux Falls Christian is a really, really good team. But I look at Hamlin, and we talked about Riley Rosenquist, but obviously Cammie Wadsworth is up there in terms of scoring as well. 21.6 points per game, 6.1 rebounds. She just does everything for this team, and she's going to be one of those dangerous players that could win a state championship.
We haven't talked to Dan DeYoung, the head coach of Sioux Falls Christian, all year, so I took an opportunity to ask him to be on, and here's what he had to say about the matchup.
Yeah, Hamlin's extremely physical. They have a lot of really good posts with the Wadsworth girl and the Abraham girl both down low. They just never stop working. They're constantly sealing. They're constantly going for position. They're very, very good. They're very, very skilled, and they know how to be able to use their body and seal very well. And they have a nice little 8th grade point guard that's just getting better as the season's going. She's quick. She's shooting it well. She's just phenomenal. And then their defense is just overall really, really good. They make it hard on teams. They're very physical with you. They don't give up easy buckets. I think we match up pretty well with them in our size and our length. And it's going to be a battle on Thursday night. We set a goal to get back to state at the beginning of the year, and we were able to accomplish that. I feel like, there's certain girls on our team that just love that moment. And you can see that in Kyla on the Sodak 16 game. She was driven, and she was, ready to go. And she put in 28 points for us there in that game. And it was like, yes, big game. She stepped up, and she was ready to go.
Yeah, so they haven't played each other this year, but both have played really stiff schedules. It'll be, again, I feel like a broken record here, but Hamlin Sioux Falls Christian could be a dynamite first-round game in Class A.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of both of these teams sort of run through the inside a little bit, so it'll be interesting to see how that matchup plays out.
Wagner comes in as the favorites. They lost just one game this year. They lost that to Hanson, so it shows that they're vulnerable just like anybody else here. But they've also beaten some teams in this tournament. You look at Lakota Tech with just the one loss early in the season in the LNI to Red Cloud. You look at West Central, who had that slip up against Wagner. And then you see Hamlin, a team that I think is probably not getting enough attention. Just those favorites. I could see any of these teams making it all the way, without making a prediction. Do you have any inkling of how this tournament's going to unfold, Michael?
Yeah, we talk about how balanced this class is, but I look at those top two teams, and it's certainly less of a certainty than any other classes that those top two teams will make it. But just with what Wagner has, the length at the top of their defense, with Shalane Nagel and Ashton Copel, who's a 8th grader actually, and down low with Emma Yost, and they got a really, really balanced team, and they're young though, and West Central's got some experience on them, so it's been it's going to be really interesting if those two teams match up in the final. But like we said, it's no guarantee.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wagner, playing, like you said, with a super young team. West Central with a little bit more experience. It's been a while since Wagner's been in this thing. I think experience might count. It doesn't always count for a big factor, but I think West Central's and their experience, to me, makes them the favorite. But hey, that's just me. Let's move on to girls B, another power-packed field of dynamite players to talk about. And here's a list of the top scorers. You've got Malia Estes, who's right around 27 points per game. Kennedy Buckholtz averaging a double-double. Mallory Miller averaging a double-double. Avery Broughton averaging a double-double. Some crazy individual talent and some teams that are used to being here, Michael.
Yeah, this is definitely a class with some of the top scorers in South Dakota. It's been really interesting to watch this throughout the year, but I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, let's break down the matchups a little bit here in Class B. Starting with Roncalli. Roncalli won Class A, and then for them have to move down to Class B. A lot of people just say it's a foregone conclusion. Oh, they were coming down. They got everybody back except for one player. This is Roncalli's to lose. Well, Class B is very competitive as well. And honestly, they've got a tough matchup going up against Viborg Hurley, who had an upset in their own round of 16 to get to the state tournament. They've been to the state tournament now, I believe, 2 out of the last 3, or I should have got that number ready before, but they've made it a couple times in the last few years. They're not going to be a stranger to this situation either. And with Coral Mason, Danae Mock, and a lot of their scorers, they feel like they belong. But Roncalli does seem like a little bit different of an animal here. What are your assessments on this game?
Yeah, I think, just watching how the season's kind of gone, I've sort of like toyed with the idea of having Corsica-Stickney as the number 1. We've talked about it on the show before, but Roncalli has just proven every single test. Their only loss of the year is to a really, really good Class A Hamlin team. I just think, especially knowing how good Hamlin is at this point of the year, I think it's safe to say that Aberdeen is right now the favorite in this tournament. Even though it has gotten more competitive over the years, over the year, and we've kind of seen some teams get a little bit closer. I think they've just proven everything that they need to.
Yeah, watching Roncalli is a lot of fun, and Madeline Bragg belongs as one of the top players in this class as well, and Morgan Fiedler, both of those two going to Northern State next year. They want to get it done for Roncalli to go back to back, and they've got the talent to do it. So that'll be fun. Viborg Hurley will have their hands full. Viborg Hurley, definitely not the favorite here, but it'll be interesting to see if they can give Roncalli a challenge. No mutual opponents between those two teams, by the way, this year. Hard to make the comparisons, but there's your 1-8. The 4-5 battle, aforementioned Corsica-Stickney taking on White River, and last year, White River extended their season in the semifinals by beating Corsica-Stickney on a last-second shot. Corsica-Stickney last year lost on a last-second shot. The year before was the top seed coming into the tournament, and it was canceled due to COVID. They really feel like they want to get this thing done. Avery Broughton didn't play last year because of her ACL injury. She is back, and she is starting to look like old Avery Broughton. She's putting some really good performances together. But White River with Malia Estes, we've got some huge star power in this game.
Yeah, and it was only a matter of time with Avery Broughton because, obviously that injury is so fresh. So when she started the year, it was pretty much an expectation that she was going to work her way back into the game. Obviously, if you don't play basketball for that long, it takes a really long time to get yourself into game shape. But now she is, and she's playing some really good basketball. So, I'm excited about, if I'm this Corsica-Stickney team, I'm really excited about how they're playing right now. I think they got a really good chance in this tournament.
Well, I talked to Larissa Broughton and got her thoughts on this matchup and the thoughts on her team finally getting to play as a team in a March tournament once again.
Oh, it's a good matchup. I think we match up good with each other. Obviously they have Estes that can do so much. So that's kind of a focus, but we've done pretty well on teams that have a standout player like that. So, knock on wood, I hope that we can keep that up and kind of hold her in check. And then, then I like her odds. We didn't board real well last year when we played them. Part of that was having lost Avery, so, we have to work on boarding and kind of have that be our focus. And then of course, keeping Estes in check.
So yeah, defending champs in White River with Malia Estes this time running the show. Definitely a potential for an upset here. I guess you wouldn't call it that big of an upset, but of course, Corsica-Stickney also feels like, maybe they're the best team in this class. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. 2 versus 7. De Smet takes on Aberdeen Christian. And again, not your typical 2-7. I think this one, it really feels more like a coin flip to me. De Smet has not played another team in the state tournament field. So they've had a tough schedule in their own right, but nobody in this state B tournament. So they're going to be a new to all these other teams, and all these other teams will be new to them. Whereas Aberdeen Christian has played a few of these teams. They've beaten Corsica-Stickney this year. Yes, they've lost a couple games too, but a lot of fun between these two. What's your assessment of the DeSmet Aberdeen Christian game, Michael?
Yeah, and I just want to start with DeSmet. It's really interesting when you enter almost as the unknown in a tournament, especially a tournament like this, where so many of these teams are so familiar with each other at this point. But you don't have film on DeSmet, so that could play to DeSmet's favor. But also at the same time, DeSmet not having that experience against some of these bigger teams, like you wonder if some of these other teams are more battle tested than they are. But they enter as the number 2 seed, and they absolutely deserve that spot. So this is just their way to prove it. But obviously Aberdeen Christian was playing really good towards the end of the year, and they're probably playing. I'm feeling really good about how they're playing basketball too. So this is, as you said, maybe it's because we haven't seen DeSmet against any of these top teams, but this to me is probably the most the matchup that could go either way for me.
Yeah. I talked to Brendan Pitts, head coach of DeSmet, and he's really excited about getting this team back on track. And here's what he had to say as they enter the state tournament.
I knew the team was capable of a lot, and the thing is, we played a tough schedule too. I mean, we played Hamlin and Flandreau and Wolsey, Wessington and Arlington and Castlewood and Sioux Valley, Coleman, Egan, Howard, a lot of really good teams. And like I said, it goes back to the one game at a time thing, and honestly, like I said, I knew this team was capable of a lot. They play together as a team so well. They put in a lot of work. The open gyms in the summertime, the early morning weightlifting sessions they do with the volleyball coach here does it mainly for the girls programs, and she does a great job with that. And they're here just like the football team at 6 a.m. every morning in the summertime. So we knew we were capable of a lot. Our senior leadership with Kennedy and Cameron, they do a great job of getting everybody involved and encouraging everybody. And yeah, it's been a great year. I don't know, as far as, when we started the season, we didn't really set a record goal. We just set a goal that we want to be playing in Watertown in March. And we reached that goal now, but we're not done yet. We got 3 games left, and we want to make the most of that too.
Coach Pitts excited about playing in a state tournament. He's got Kennedy Buckholtz, Jada Burke, and Emma Albright, all double-digit scorers, but Kennedy Buckholtz has been absolutely mind-blowing. She's had several 20 rebound games. I think she's going to be a lot of fun to watch in this one. And then Aberdeen Christian, a couple of the games they lost earlier this year were without Joy Rohrbach, their starting point guard. She is back, and she's leading the entire field here in assists per game. I think they are definitely a different team when they've got everybody back together. So I think, like we already mentioned, dynamite matchup here. All right, one more to talk about, the 3-6 matchup. Wall taking on Faith. They played each other in the regular season back in the middle of January to a 33-31 score. Wall found a way to win this one. It was definitely a slugfest. But this Wall team, I'll tell you what, they're interesting. We heard from head coach John Hess last week about how they've really used some senior power to get them to where they are. Ava Dinger has been one of the players we probably don't talk about enough as one of the top players in the state. And man, she played well against Howard last week. They're playing their best ball right now. Faith, probably the most under the radar team in this. They weren't even talked about in the rankings this year, but they continue to make the state tournament year in and year out. They've got a good young squad here. And again, they've put it together late in the year. I think Wall versus Faith, another one that you could really flip a coin on.
Yeah, and you mentioned the senior leadership with Wall. When you hear 33-31, that's a type of score that's sort of like, even if you didn't know anything about Wall, that they have some seniors to lead them through that game. So, defense, and that's probably going to be the key to this game. And to state the obvious, whatever team scores more points is going to win. But yeah, it's probably going to be I don't know if it's going to be as low scoring as this one, but with the matchup they had earlier in the year, I'm excited to see how it plays out this time.
I really like what head coach Brian Carmichael has done with this Faith group, and year in, year out, they're always tough to beat because they play great defense. Cassidy Schulke has been fantastic for them, not only on offense, but on defense. She is a steal waiting to happen. She can really turn games around, but just by what she does on defense and setting up her teammates on offense. So I really like her, and I really like this Wall team too. And a lot of people think just because these teams haven't played a lot of the teams on the other side of the state that maybe for some reason they're lesser than. I don't think that, especially after what I saw Wall do in the round of 16 against Howard. I have a feeling that one of these two teams not only could, after they get to the Friday night game, I mean, they could be really competitive on Friday night as well. So let's just talk about the B tournament in general here. You've got the defending champs in Roncalli in Class A, and you got the defending champs in Class B from White River. The Roncalli team looks very much like last year's team. The White River team, obviously don't have Kaylin Valander Prue, the player of the year that they had last year, but Malia Estes has really stepped up and filled that role. And then you've got Corsica-Stickney, who back the last time they had a full and healthy Avery Broughton, they were the favorites. So it really feels like you got a lot of teams in this field who have proven something and need to go out and prove another thing. And then you got a lot of teams in the field like DeSmet who are unproven. Aberdeen Christian is unproven. Wall and Faith, even though they've made it to state tournaments, are unproven. It's just a really interesting dynamic in this tournament.
Yeah, and we mentioned some of the top teams, and Roncalli and Corsica-Stickney are probably those two teams for me. And we sort of got the perfect draw in the sense that I believe they're on both opposite sides of the bracket, correct?
Which two?
Corsica-Stickney and Roncalli.
No, they play. That's the 1-4 matchup on Friday night if they both win on. So that'll be tough.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so yeah, I mean, those two teams going off and going against each other in the semifinal, that opens up something for another team on the other side of the bracket. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how this plays out.
I really feel like that side of the bracket, the White River, Corsica-Stickney, Viborg Hurley, Roncalli side of the bracket, they're going to have to earn it more, I believe. But that's not to say that somebody on the other. I mean, Aberdeen Christian could put together a run on that other side of the bracket and get it done. DeSmet could, and then Wall and Faith, as I said, not the favorites here, but wouldn't be surprised to see them put up a good fight as well. So a lot of interesting games as we march through, and I'm going to be heading. I haven't decided where I'm going to go for the championship game yet. It's not going to be in Rapid though. I will either go to the Class A or the Class B on Saturday night and check out some of those games on Thursday and Friday on TV as well. I can't wait to see how this plays out. Are you going anywhere special, Michael, or are you?
Yeah, so I'm gonna check out some of the games in Brookings the next couple of days. I think I'm gonna stick with that because we've got somebody headed to Rapid City, and we've got our sister paper in Watertown as well handling the Class B tournament. So yeah, I think I'm gonna stick around at the Class A tournament, which I'm really excited about. Obviously, we've talked plenty about how good that tournament's gonna be. So I'm excited to be there for that one.
Hey, best of luck to all the teams, coaches, fans. Enjoy this one. This has the feeling that we could have some really special games happen in the next 3 days, and appreciate you watching all year on Talking Hoops, and congratulations to everybody just to get there, and then best of luck to see what you can do in the next 3 days. For Michael McCleary, I'm Jason Andera. We'll see you next week when we preview the boys' state tournaments.